In your opening statement, your written statement submitted to the committee, you have indicated that you have, in your words, doubled down on a clean energy transition, and that recent events have quote, proved that European institutions and democracy are robust and prepared for the challenge, close quote. Recent events, however, tell a little bit different story, a slightly different story than that. Russia extorted the EU by throttling gas flows into the continent, and member countries started the winter with severely depleted natural gas stores. EU energy prices doubled in many member states, and mercifully, the EU was bailed out of a dire situation when 56 billion cubic meters of U.S. natural gas came through, along with an unusually mild winter. We saw Green New Deal member states cutting down old growth forests and starting coal-fired power plants just to keep warm. These are not necessarily signs of things going well. So what can you tell me about what steps the EU is taking to ensure that we've got proven, dispatchable energy sources that will be available in the future when these interruptions occur? Because, as I'm sure you would agree, burning wood is one of the dirtier things that people can burn.
Indeed, thank you, Senator, for the question. I think there is a history until the 24th of February 2022 and the history after that. Before February 2022, before the 24th of February, we were highly dependent on Russian fossil fuels as part of our energy mix. As I mentioned earlier, we are net importers. We don't have significant domestic extraction of energy, and so the most domestic source we have is renewable energy, and we have invested in that to build that out as part of our energy system.
Is sawdust considered part of that? Sawdust, wood chips? I'm told that by some definitions, those are considered renewable when they burn the pelletized sawdust.
Part of our renewable mix is what we call biofuels, and we have sustainability criteria to make sure that there is not a negative impact overall on the environment and climate in using biofuels as part of the energy mix. From the 24th of February 2022, very shortly after that, we decided to reduce that dependence on Russia. We decided that that was not an acceptable situation. This was decided unanimously by all European heads of state and government. And what you've seen since the 24th of February last year is a significant reduction, more than a significant reduction, a cut in that dependence on Russia. We got through that year without any shortages. We got through that year with secure supplies. We got through that year, as you said, with very high energy prices as a result of the global energy crisis, as a result of that global supply-demand
Even
gap
during a
in
mild
natural gas.
winter, right? Thank you. I've got limited time. Dr. Mikulska, now you described the potential impact of EU countries in effect crossing their fingers and not purchasing long-term gas contracts. Hoping that they'll be able to sort of will themselves into carbon neutrality, hoping for the best, despite past performance and no sign that they're going to be able to do that. What impact could this have on Russia's ability to continue to use natural gas as a geopolitical tool for economic extortion?
Well, we do know, as the many tables here have shown, that the Russian gas is still flowing to Europe, both via pipeline and as LNG, which speaks to the persistence of that fuel. While EU was able to ban oil in most of the cases, this has not been the case for Russian gas. And that creates instability that's there. Thankfully, there are ways in which LNG imports can be ramped up. However, for the next 2-3 years, those LNG imports will be limited by the supply. So there is a big problem with potential instability, volatility of prices, even if the storage that's currently at really high levels remains at high levels.
Right, this could all lead to a problem, I assume, if, especially, what I'd like to know is what would happen if American LNG were no longer available to flow into foreign markets, particularly into Europe. I ask because on the domestic front, we've seen extraordinary efforts by the current administration to prevent future oil and gas exploration. What would be the effect of that if we no longer had American LNG to go into global markets?
It's almost hard to imagine, so I'm hoping that's not going to be the case, because what U.S. LNG is helping with is making that markets more commercial, depending on supply and demand, and in a way actually reducing the volatility that could be caused by political actors. And I think that's very important. We will see potentially high prices based on shortages of supply and hikes in demand. But having those shortages based on political decisions of foreign actors that are not friendly towards us or our allies is the biggest problem. And we've seen this with Russia and the war in Ukraine. And that's something that we would like to absolutely avoid. And U.S. exports of both oil and gas have provided U.S. with geopolitical power that literally checks the power of other actors, the large producers that are often authoritarian states and that do not necessarily have the best of interest for the U.S. or its allies in mind.
Thank you. I see my time has expired. Thanks.
Senator Rono.